Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to be going over the two readathons that I participated in the month of March, and they were Catalyst Reads Rereadathon challenges for the month of March, and also the Irish Readathon. So out of the two readathons, there were 8 books that I was trying to do to complete the challenges, and I almost did. I got 7 done. So let's get started with the Rereadathon. Also, the links will be down below for the channels who hosted these events. We'll start with the challenge I didn't finish, which was to reread an autobiography or a biography. I planned on rereading Theodore Roosevelt's autobiography, but at the same time I was also starting The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt by Edmund Morris, and this is a regular biography of Theodore Roosevelt, and it's the first part in a trilogy. I'm about halfway through it, and I just felt kind of silly reading both of these at the same time, so I ended up just sticking with The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt. It's really good, but obviously I didn't finish it, and it wouldn't have met the challenge anyways. But for the next one was to reread a memoir, and I don't think I've actually really read a memoir per se in the past, so I can't really reread one, I suppose. But I went with Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, which are, kind of a memoir. They're basically just notes and journal entries he wrote for himself in his own personal use. So it's kind of a memoir, I suppose, in a sense. But yeah, it's basically a work on Stoic philosophy now, and I encourage pretty much everyone to read it, even if you're not into philosophy. It's very down to earth and pragmatic. It's not ivory towerish at all. Most people that I know that have read some of it have really enjoyed it. So yeah, I encourage you guys to check that one out. I'll leave the review down below. And for a reread of a nonfiction work, I reread The First Clash by Jim Lacey. And this is a history book dealing with the Battle of Marathon between the Athenians and the Persians. And one of the reasons I wanted to reread it was because he brings up a lot of sort of contentious or controversial points to the narrative of the Battle of Marathon. And a lot of times he has fairly unorthodox claims that what he believes how it went down, basically. And now that I've reread it, I can appreciate some of the arguments a little more clearly from other literature that I read. But he does make some good points. Some I felt were not quite as good, but like, for example, his argument of Callimachus the Polemarch being the actual overall commander of the Athenians, I thought was really good, even though that's kind of unorthodox. However, some of the other points that he tries to prove, such as he believes the Athenians actually sprinted or ran really hard the majority of the mile distance between the Persian camp and their own camp, in formation with their armor, to me is just a little absurd. Definitely need more convincing on that one, but hopefully I'll get a review up for that one soon. And so let's go now to the Irish Readathon. The first book that I finished was Only the Stones Survive by Morgan Llewellyn, and this is a retelling of the coming of the Milesians, who were the Celtic Gaels from the continental Europe, when they invaded Ireland and displaced the original, or the current inhabitants, the Tuatha Dé Danann. I felt the characters were a little weak, though the setting of the island of Ireland was really good. I did like how it was sort of a somewhat faithful retelling to the myths, using a lot of the characters were named based after, the legends and stuff. But I felt that some of them were just a little too stereotypical and just were not fleshed out. For an Irish classic, I went with W.B. Yeats's Celtic Twilight, and I've never really read anything quite like it before. First of all, I don't really read that much modern English classical literature, but this is basically a collection of short stories that he was able to compile through like oral history, going around Ireland and different communities and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's really interesting. If you like short stories, I'd definitely go pick it up. For an Irish history book, I was originally going to do Wars of the Irish Kings, but that turned out to be just an anthology of primary source material, and I just really wasn't feeling it. But when I was at the thrift store, at my thrift store haul, I found How the Irish Saved Civilization by Thomas Cahill for $1, and so I definitely picked that one up and read it in place of Wars of the Irish Kings. But yeah, it's a pretty famous and popular history book. I know, it's kind of weird, popular history book. But anyways, yeah, I thought it was kind of silly, to be honest. Like, the first half of the book, I had no idea, like, really what the book was even about. It's only towards the end that you get the even argument of, what the reason was, how the Irish actually saved civilization. But then he basically goes on to say, well, yeah, these other people pretty much did the same thing too. And then you're just like, what? An Irish history book that I was more pleased with was In Search of Ancient Ireland by Carmel McCaffrey and Leo Eaton. This is actually a companion book to a PBS documentary series type show, I guess, that was made, I think, in the early 2000s. So it does have some weird, like, cameo shots, like, in the narrative. Like, when it pans to, like, someone, like, in a studio just, like, saying a couple sentences or whatever, and then going back to whatever they were filming. That's in the book, sort of, and it's kind of weird, but overall I felt like I learned quite a bit from it, so I'm really pleased I picked this one up. And lastly, for a book with green on the cover, I went with The Vikings by Robert Ferguson. It was a little dry read. I'll leave the full review down below, but it did cover the political narrative very thoroughly. It's definitely not a bad book by any means. If you like Norse or Viking history, you should definitely go pick it up. Plus, this did have a good chapter on Hiberna Norse civilization from the Norwegian Vikings, who basically quasi-colonized and settled in Ireland. So that was a good connection to the Irish Readathon, and I'm pleased that I was able to finish all 5. I don't know if I'll be doing. I don't think I'll be doing any more readathons in the month of April, since I did 2 in the month of March. Probably maybe in the midsummer, I'll go ahead and find some readathons to participate in and do some more. But anyways, always remember, read victoriously.